What's up, beautiful people? It's your boy Judeo, and I'm back again with a new video. Today we're going to be checking out how Jordan Peterson left a female student speechless on their discussion about sex. Without wasting your time, let's get to it.
As a redeemed progressive, what is the key to empowering men in the Me Too age while maintaining healthy boundaries and strong behavioural expectations?
We've had relatively reliable birth control since 1960. Okay, that's not very long. And we underestimate the unbelievable technological triumph of birth control. It's the hydrogen bomb, it's the transistor, like it's a major league transformation in human interaction. Women are now free from involuntary reproduction. That's never been the case in the entire history of the planet. Okay, we don't know exactly what to do about that. Okay, so the first idea in the 60s was, hell, let's party. And you could see why. It's like what the rules for not engaging in promiscuous sexual intercourse seemed to have vanished. So we had a couple of decades of experimentation. It's like, well, how'd that go? Little hard on the family, I would say. That's not so good for kids. AIDS, that wasn't a plus. Could have killed us all. And it mutated, particularly to take advantage.
So basically his point is that birth control, even though it was a good thing, has also caused some kind of problem because people tend to engage in more immoral sexual intercourse and leading to some other things like AIDS, which makes sense. I think it does.
Advantage of promiscuous sex because viruses are very tricky things. So it turns out that sex is a little bit more complicated than we thought. Well, it actually turns out that it's a lot more
I haven't seen this video before, but yeah, a lot more complicated than we thought.
Complicated than we think. Okay, and now it's 50, 60 years later, and we're trying to sort this out. It's like, well, when is it okay to have sex? Exactly. And when is it not okay to have sex? And what does it mean that it's okay? And what does consent mean? And the answer to that is, well, we never used to have to think these things through because the rule was don't have sex until you get married. That was the rule. Now that isn't the rule. Okay, so what's the rule? Well, we're not having a conversation about the rule. We're waiting till someone does something that seems like it might be untoward and then mobbing them and trying to extract the rule out that way. And it's not a very effective way of doing it. You want to decrease campus rape? That's easy. Get rid of alcohol. No one has that conversation. It's like I did my PhD work on alcohol.
What do you guys think? No more alcohol on campus to decrease campus rape. Do you think alcohol is synonymous with things like rape?
50% of the people who are murdered are drunk. And 50% of the people who kill them are drunk. And almost all the date rape situations are consequences of excess intoxication. But yet there's a party culture on campuses and anything goes. And you also have this strange thing, especially on the radical left, which is unbelievably paradoxical, where absolutely every form of sexual expression imaginable is 100% permissible because sex is fine, but it's so dangerous that while you're dancing with someone at a Princeton mixer, you have to ask them 2 or 3 times if it's okay for you to continue. and that's actually the case, by the way.
Yeah, that's what consent is.
It's like, well, both of those things can't be true. Now, what's happening, I think, on the Me Too end of things and the affirmative consent end of things is the old sexual taboos are reasserting themselves. The idea that we can extract sex out from emotional intimacy, and especially emotional intimacy, I would say, psychological intimacy, maybe even from long-term relationship, I don't believe it's a tenable idea. I don't think we can do it. And a lot of what we're seeing is the backlash against that. It's like, well, I feel used. Because one of the things that's happening on the really radical end of the sexual abuse movement is the idea that, well, if you have intercourse with someone and then you regret it the next day, that's evidence that it wasn't consensual. Well,
I think that theory is very wrong.
It is, in a sense, evidence that it wasn't consensual, because it's evidence that you didn't bloody well think it through, right? It was good for last night, but it's not good
this
for
morning.
today. It's not very wise. The question is, well, what constitutes consent? And we need to have a very serious conversation about that. Like, under what circumstances is it acceptable to give consent? But we're not mature enough to have that conversation. We want it both ways. We want to be able to do whatever we want, with whoever we want, whenever we want, with no consequences, and we want there never to be any trouble about consent. It's like, well, no,
can't work
that's
like
not
that.
going to happen.
True.
I don't think that sex works very well outside of committed relationships. I don't think there's any evidence that it does. There's a strong proclivity across cultures for the enforcement, social enforcement of long-term monogamy. And there's reasons for that. And I think you deviate from that at your peril. So now, if you want to deviate from that, there's all sorts of reasons to do it. And I can understand why people are interested in adventure and all of that. But, my sense also as a clinician is, you only really get to try out about 5 people in your life. You have to make a decision pretty damn quick. Like between 20 and 30, there's a lot of things to get straight, and long-term mate is usually one of them. And most of the time, people should be more careful with their sexual behavior when they're young, especially when they're drunk, than they are. And I just think it's so interesting that all of the taboo reconstruction is coming from the radical left. It's not what you'd expect at all. You'd think it'd be the damn right-wing Christians complaining about, sexual immorality. It's like, no, it's the radical lefties. You have to have signed consent before making any physical move. And then that's so what? Really? Who thought that up?
How do you get that to when somebody's drunk?
Stupidest thing I've ever heard. You know how awkward that would be? You're supposed to be able to do a little bit of nonverbal reading, right? I mean, that's part of romance. You ever see a movie where the 2 people who are dating exchange consent notes? Like, that doesn't happen. So it's an unrealistic solution. But I think the real solution is that despite the fact that we have reliable birth control, we're going to have to relearn what the acceptable rules of propriety are with regards to sexual relationships. One of the things I often tell my young clients is, don't do anything physically with anyone that you wouldn't talk to them about. Because if you're too damn embarrassed to talk about it,
then
maybe it's a little premature in the relationship to actually do it. And then there's harm in it. There's emotional harm in it on both parties. There's the cheapening of both parties. So it's going to take us a long time to sort this out. But hopefully we can do it in a serious manner, and it won't be merely a matter of mobbing those who seem to have made an error. So
that was a very, very good response. I was just having a discussion with my friend about consent the other day, and they were making a joke out of it. Like, before you even talk to the girl, you ask for consent before you continue the discussion. Like, once you meet a girl, you're like, "Hi, how you doing? At the end of this conversation, I would like to take you home for this. Hope you're okay." And then you continue the conversation. So now, because consent is almost unimaginable now. Like, it's too broad. It's really too broad. It's like there's so much freedom. On the other hand, there's no freedom at all. Because if you're intimate with someone, by the time you get there, you're not thinking about asking for consent or exchanging consent notes. Like, that's not in your thought process. But I also understand when he affiliates things like this. He didn't say 100%. He said about 50% of I think his word was promiscuous sexual intercourse. He said about 50% of rape is caused because people are drunk, and even murder is caused because people are drunk. So if you reduce the level of alcohol or eliminate alcohol from the campus, then you can reduce the level of rape and you know, some other vices that go on campus, which I think also makes sense. Jordan Peterson is very intellectual, so everything he says, usually I like to pick a thing or two from what he says, you know, because you can really learn a lot from him. Let me know your thoughts on this discussion. Let me know your thoughts on consent. And if there's anything you want to check me on, feel free to do so. If you want to add to what I've said, also feel free to do so. It's the end of this video. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I will see you on the next one. Have a wonderful day. Peace.